Hey everybody. So today we're going to be talking about observations and inferences. We're going to test your observation skills and see how things go for you. So we're going to learn a little bit about making observations in class. So let's just define to begin with, what exactly is an observation? An observation is when we use one or more of the five senses to gather information. It's a noting and recording of facts. For example, in the room right now, there are three tall cafe tables that students could sit at for the seating chart. There is one large demonstration table up in the front. There is one teacher computer in the front of the room. So those are some examples. Those are all things that you could see. But right now, you probably are thinking about, there's probably some other things that I could make some observations about in this classroom. For example, maybe the lights are really bright. Maybe it's cold. Maybe it's hot. Maybe it smells funny. Maybe it smells good. So you could use all of your observations in order to make, all of your senses in order to make observations. So what is the difference then with an inference? An inference is a logical interpretation based upon prior knowledge and experience. So you might think that there is only one teacher computer because there is only one teacher that's in this room. That's a logical inference, right? It's a logical interpretation. But we all know that sometimes there's two teachers assigned to a class. So not always true. It's also based upon our observations. So we have to notice things around us in order to be able to make those inferences in the first place. An example might be, another example outside of school would be when you see a sidewalk, it's wet. You could infer what? I don't know, maybe it rained. You could also infer maybe that somebody watered their grass, sprinkler was on, somebody washed their car. So there's lots of logical interpretations as to why there might be wet cement. Now, when we make observations, we know that there are different types of data that we can collect. And you've probably heard these terms before because they're typically used with the scientific method. So quantitative data is when observations are made which can be measured in some type of way. So the fact that there was one teacher computer, the fact that there was one demonstration table, okay, three cafe tables, are all examples of quantitative data. Qualitative data are those observations that are very descriptive. I like to think of them as adjectives because you usually have to use the five senses. So you might describe what you see in terms of color or shape, texture. Maybe you're thinking about the way something tastes or the way something smells, okay? Or it feels. So all of those would be descriptions or adjectives that might describe what it is that you're observing. Now, what does that mean for us in lab? Well, in laboratory exercises, we record observations, not inferences. Inferences may be used when writing the conclusion of your lab report. So here's what's going to happen. We're actually going to test your observation skills right now. So on your sheet of paper, there is a section in which you're going to be writing down 6 different observations. Let me explain what I'm talking about. So on the next slide, you're going to have the opportunity to make some observations, okay? How many things are you able to notice in the amount of time that I give you? Let's check it out. Taking a look at the picture, you're trying to think about both quantitative and qualitative observations. Good. So write down 6 observations that you notice. What did you see? I'm curious as to know what kinds of things you guys wrote down, so I'm sorry that I'm not there to hear what you have written. If people aren't finished, take a moment and pause the video right now. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on with the discussion. So you may have noticed that in that picture that there is a blue pickup truck in the middle of the road. Maybe you noticed that there was 2 yellow posts farther down the sidewalk. Maybe you counted the number of cars that were actually there. Maybe you noticed that there was a yard sale sign right up here on this telephone pole. Maybe you made note of things that weren't actually there, like I don't see any pedestrians. There's nobody on the sidewalk. Maybe you paid attention to the fact that you can't park in a certain area or that the speed limit was 35 miles an hour. Those are all really good observations. So on the next slide, you're going to have the opportunity to state whether the statement is an observation or if it's an inference. You're looking at 2 coins right now. I'm sorry, it's not 2 coins. I'm funny. It's the same coin, but it is the front as well as the back. So taking a look at that picture, on your sheet of paper, there's a section for you to identify if it's an observation or if it's an inference. So there is a representation of a face on one side of the coin. Go ahead and write your answer. Is that an observation or is that an inference? The Latin word day means God. Observation or inference? The coin was made by deeply religious people. Observation or inference? The date 1722 is printed on one side of the coin. Number 5, the coin was made in 1722. And last but not least, the face on the coin is a representation of the nation's president. What do you think? Observation or inference? So at this point, you should have written down either an O or an I next to each statement. If students need more time, now's the time to click pause, and we'll continue on with the discussion, and you can start again when you're ready. So let's check this out. When we look back at those observations, there is a representation of a face on one side of the coin. I might ask myself, is that true or false? Yes, it is true. So that means it is an observation. Now, I'm not trying to guess why there's a coin on or a face on the coin, but indeed there is. So it's an observation, not an inference. Number 2, the Latin word day means God. Believe it or not, that is true. You might not know Latin, but it is in fact it's an observation. For number 3, the coin was made by deeply religious people. See, that one's an inference. You don't know who made the coins. Just because it has the word God on the coin doesn't necessarily mean that the people are religious. Number 4, the date 1722 is printed on one side of the coin. Well, that is true, so it's an observation. Now, does that mean that the coin was made in 1722? Not sure. That could have been like the year of independence. And so that's an inference. And then number 6, the face on the coin is a representation of the nation's president. We don't know who the face is of. So that means it's an inference. All right. Now comes the fun part. Check this out. Kind of messes with your head a little bit, right? Let's just make some weird observations because to tell you the truth, your senses can play tricks on you. And your brain sometimes alters the perception of what it is that you're seeing. So this is one of those kind of optical illusions. And when you stare at the elephant, It's kind of hard if you start at the body and let your eyes go down. It's kind of hard to tell. It looks like you're following the shoulder down, and then all of a sudden there's no foot there. And if you follow a foot up to the body, it doesn't look like it goes up the right way. And it kind of looks like there's more feet than there's actually supposed to be. Kind of messes with you. Now, what do you see here? Interesting. Do you see the two faces, the silhouettes, looking at each other? Or do you see kind of like a goblet shape structure? I don't even know what you call that. Okay. All depends on what you see. Now shout it out if you know who this is. Who's in this picture? I'm guessing that you're hollering out that it's President Bill Clinton and Al Gore, his vice president, who's right next to him. But in fact, it's actually the exact same president or picture of President Bill Clinton. They just changed the hairstyle. They photoshopped it. Look closely. Isn't that interesting? How do you think this relates to forensic science? Could you see how maybe somebody that witnesses something might see the wrong thing? They might point out maybe the wrong characteristics of someone. What do you see here? Do you see the silhouette of a young woman with a hat on? Or do you see the face of an old man with a really large nose and mustache wearing the same hat? There's actually a third image because there is an old lady then who happens to be facing the left front corner, and it looks like she kind of has a fur collar, and the old man's nose is actually her ear, and then you can see her big nose with the wart on it. I don't know, maybe you see it, maybe you don't. Hmm, curious, isn't it? When you take a look at these two vertical lines, is one line longer than the other? Because in fact, they're exactly the same length. Absolutely crazy. Compare this picture to the next one. Kind of an interesting pencil drawing. I would love to see if any of you guys are artists. It would be super cool to see if you could actually make a drawing like this. Challenge put forth by Mrs. Learned. Okay, check this out, because now what do you see the big bird, and it looks like there's a little man with a sombrero in the bird's beak. Do you see it? Now, watch what happens when you flip the picture upside down. Do you see an island with two trees? And then there's like the man now is sitting in a canoe, and this looks like a whale or a big fish. I just think that that is so cool. I wish I was artistic enough to do stuff like that. What do you see here? Do you see the backside of an Eskimo looking inside of an igloo into a dark igloo? Do you see the Easter Island head? Dum Dum want some gum gum? It's all about perspective. Could you build these shelves? Just run your eyes side to side. Boy, does that just mess with my head. How many squares? Excuse me. Does the square have curved sides or not? Because of the circles going around, it actually makes the lines look like they're curved. Oh, another really cool artistic piece where people have layered different things to produce an image. Read this sign out loud. It just says a bird in the bush, not the. Don't say that. Okay, what do you see here? Do you see the little silhouette in black of a little man playing a saxophone? And then if you focus on both the black and white, you should see the face of a woman. Pretty neat. Another type of artistic piece, if you ask me. Could you stack these blocks? I know, I'm killing you here. Oops, I think we skipped one. What animal do you perceive here? Do you see a duck, a bunny, or both? More like a dunny. How about this image? It contains a word and a picture. Hopefully you see that this is two eyes and like glasses and somebody's nose and the guy's mouth and then his chin, neck, right, and maybe shoulder. But if you look at it in cursive written from left down to right, it says the word liar. Crazy. Kind of interesting. This is a very famous artist. There's lots of paintings done by him that use that variation in perspective. Messes with your head a little bit. Wait a second, where are those dots coming from? Seriously, it's from your eyes and your brain. This one's a fun one. Take a moment, and everybody should participate in this. Trust me, everyone's going to screw up. Sorry, I shouldn't tell you what's going to happen before you do it, but look at the chart and say the color, not the word. So say the color, not the word. It's absolutely crazy how once you get going, if you try and go too fast, eventually your brain perceives the color and then you can't say the word. It's like your right brain is trying to work on reading and your left brain is seeing the actual word, or you're trying to say I'm sorry, your right brain's trying to say the color and your left brain is actually trying to read the word. Crazy that your brain has such a struggle with that. Read across right now. Hopefully you said ABC, right? Now go ahead and, oops, shoot, I went backwards. Now read across. Sorry, read up and down. Did you say 12, 13, and 14? Because well, I don't understand the thing in the middle. Why in the world would you call the B a 13? It's all because of the context that it's in. This has happened to many people who've been convicted of crimes that shouldn't have been because they were perceived to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Another one of those variation in images. Hopefully you see a young woman facing the back right and then an older woman facing the front right. It's all about perspective. Can you tell which soldier's taller? Because they're actually all the same height. It's just the perspective because of the lines drawn. I love this picture too. The horses, it's the picture of faces. So you should be able to make out faces in all the rocks and in the moss and in the trees, etc. in the background. Really cool. Yeah, the landscape of faces. I love this one. Do you see the face on Earth? It's kind of hard. But if I turn it this way, now do you see the face? Sometimes our brains don't recognize things unless they're in the exact orientation that we're used to seeing them. Oh, the circles are not moving. Your brain is making them appear to move. Try focusing in on one circle. Stop moving it. That's absolutely crazy. Now, move your eyes around again. It makes all the circles move. Man, that messes with my head. So fun. Are these dots moving too? Stare straight at one dot. They won't move, but if you move side to side, it makes it look like they're wheels spinning. Oh, does this image appear to be moving? Oh, guess what? It's not. Just kidding. Too funny, too funny. Hey, you guys, thanks a lot for listening all the way until the end. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you soon.